Welcome back to another music tutorial. I've had a few people ask about my mastering chain. I'm still learning in this process. It's taking me 2 or 3 years to get to the point where I'm at. And I would say I'm not even close to being where I want to be. So the first thing I do before I do any mastering at all, I've got instrumental. So all of the instruments are in here. And that includes bass and even percussion instruments, synths, all that sort of stuff goes in here. It's kind of like a big dumping ground. And then you've got vocals, so all of the vocals are in here, all frozen once again. And then I've kind of taken out the kick and snare. This is one of the few tracks where I've actually got the kick and snare on the same track. So what I tend to do is on the instrumental track, I will then put a plugin called a track spacer. Now, this is just a type of an EQ. It's a dynamic EQ, so it doesn't need to be a track spacer. But just to give you an idea of what it does, in Ableton, you've got to have Ableton 10.1 or above for this to work, but you can sidechain the vocals. So I've done that on the whole vocal group. And just to give you an idea of how it sounds, just from about here.
No matter what you say, no matter what you say, you think you're a superstar. That's what you say you
So I've already tweaked the settings. So basically, as you can see, what it's doing is every time the vocalist is singing, it is cutting into the frequency of the song just a bit. Not, it doesn't go mental or anything. It's just a little bit frequency manipulation, and that is dynamic and it's automatic, and it's done on the entire track. It's just to make sure that the vocal is completely clear. Let's listen to it again.
Oh, yeah.
That way, the vocal doesn't have to be too loud. You can put the volume down.
You say you're a superstar, no matter where you are.
Second thing I'll do on the instrumental group is I'll put a glue compressor, or any compressor actually will do, and I just sidechain that against the kick and snare. So just literally select the kick and snare. You'll just see here, if we just press play,
Oh, yeah.
I just tweaked the threshold slightly, and the attack's really fast.
You're a superstar.
Okay, nothing on the vocal group. If you want, you can just put a bit of compression on there, similarly with a kick and snare, but I've decided not to. So that's kind of the preparation work that I do before I do the actual mastering. So it's not a lot, but I think I still get a decent sort of sound. So this is the mastering chain, and you can see here, what I've got here is I've actually saved this mastering chain, so I can actually reopen it every single time. But that sometimes isn't a great thing, because then you're kind of limited and you may want to add something that, you think, oh, it should be here, but it might not be. So, but this is, for the purposes of this song, we'll just listen to it with the VSTs and all the things I've added to it. And I'll just explain to you the reason why I've added those things. So the first thing I do is add a Saturn 2, which is a saturator. So it's a Fab Filter one. It's really good.
Oh, yeah.
You can really tell it sounds nice. So I'll just let you listen to it without the saturator and with the saturator. So this is without.
Oh, yeah.
So it doesn't need to be over the top, but it does make for a much cleaner, nicer sound. And if we go into the settings, it has some really good presets, and you don't really have to change them too much. But I always select for the master, I just select one called Saturate and Color, and I just increase the volume a bit. And then I add something called an imager, Ozone 9 imager. So the third thing I do is I put a parallel compression. This is one of these waves ones. It's called C6. I use it on almost all my songs. It just gives it just a tiny bit more dynamic compression. Listen to this.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You say you're a superstar, no matter where you are, no matter what you do.
Yeah, I just use the presets. There's one called Mastering B. This is kind of the shape, right? And it is dynamic, so it just kind of moves up and down. Now then what I do after that is I add a couple of EQs, and just so you can see here, the first EQ I always used. So firstly, I use one called Pro Q3, which is also another Fab Filter one. By the way, the Ableton EQs do exactly the same thing. I just have got used to using this. So the first EQ will be this. And this is, you don't need this, but I tend to use this in a lot of songs. It's actually a preset under the stereo called Cut Low Side. And all it does is it just gets rid of any side information below the 500 kilohertz mark, because that's going to just be unnecessary information. The thing is, you could actually maybe overdo it. So you may just want to bring it down to about the 300 mark, just so you don't overdo it. This actually should go really in before the other EQ. So let's just listen to it now with the first EQ on. And then the second EQ will be just to cut some of those. Actually, I've increased the highs, but the very, very high frequencies are gone. We'll just remove them a little bit more. And the really, really low inaudible frequencies are gone. And where you get that kind of mud in the middle, I've just reduced it a little bit. So this is kind of a classic EQ shape. It doesn't have to be like this, but this is what I tend to use. What's left actually is the limiter. This is where things start getting a bit sort of loud and pumpy. So this could hit the CPU, but let's just go into another FabFilter one called Pro LQ. Once again, I will just take a preset. Like, you want something maybe punchy for dance music. The defaults are here. So what you want to do is have a quick listen. And you can see the peaks there being cut down. Then you want to increase the gain.
You say you're a superstar, no matter where you are, no matter what you do, no matter what you say. You think you're a superstar, that's what you say you are. No matter what you do, no matter.
Right, so at the moment, I've got the limiter, I've got all of this chain, and it's really sounding kind of high-end-ish, a little bit not enough low-end. It's just sounding a bit high-frequency-ish. So what I have at the end of the chain, which is a bit of an expensive piece of magic sauce, but there's a few of these on the market at the moment, but this one's called Gullfoss. Let's just take a quick look at Gullfoss. Okay, and I've just have these sort of settings in here. As you can see, I've reduced the high end, like the top, the shine, I've reduced it quite a lot because it was just a bit too tinny for me, but I just increased the bass and the low end a little bit, and that's pretty much it. So anything in your chain could screw up the master, and I actually think the C6 stereo isn't screwing it up. It's probably actually not necessary. If listen to it now without the C6.
No matter what you say, you think you're a superstar, that's what you say you are. I see a falling star, here comes the rain. When I'm alone, I think about you.
Yeah, so in this case here, I've switched the C6 stereo off, and I think it sounds just about right. Just reduce the boost now and increase the brighten just a tiny bit. These are all the elements you need in your mastering chain. It's down to you and your ears as to, you know, what you want it to sound like. Every song is different, so every mastering chain has to be a bit different, and that's why I can't give you advice that you can copy and paste onto your own song, because it just depends on the genre, it depends on the bass of the song or the stems in the song. But I just hope I've given you some pieces of information that will enable you to make better and informed decisions going forward. So that's it for me. I hope this was an informative video. If you've got any questions, just send them into the comments and I'll just try to respond and do what I can. So catch you later. Bye.